Got him. How you doing? How you getting on?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Not too bad at all. Not too bad. Can't complain.
Oh, good.
Weather's starting to pick up here, so it's all
Right.
good.
Are you in Dubai, are you?
Yeah. Yeah, so I kind of base myself here now, so
Yeah.
it's all good. How I mean I've got a few topics tonight I want to go over, and obviously there might be a few more join us. But since though it's just yourself at the minute, is there anything you want to go over specifically? I think you're struggling with?
Yeah, I think I mentioned in the chat about a month ago that I was trying to get two rent to serviced accommodations, and it all went a bit wrong. I'd sourced them through a sourcing agent. She didn't get the contract signed. I signed it on the 4th of January. She said she forwarded it, but they just ignored that. The landlords, there's two landlords. I think they're a couple of pufters that live they've got properties next to each other. So they're a pair, and they were both playing the same game. And they sent me a tenancy agreement instead of the one that you give us. And they started putting in, because we got almost to the end, I thought it was all taken care of. I put furniture in and all sorts, and put a holding deposit on each, $3,000 on each, sourcing fee on each. So it's 12 grand plus about $2,000 furniture. Then they had clauses in there like an annual 7% increase, PG, all sorts of stuff that I couldn't agree to.
Right.
They wouldn't remove them. They thought they had my back in the corner. I wouldn't do it. I'd just sign. I left till the day it was supposed to go live, and I was supposed to pay rent, and they all turned their phones off.
Right.
So I had to go and get a van and take all my stuff out. So now I need to try and get my money out of them.
Yeah. So who the sourcing agent's gone quiet as well?
Yeah, she's sort of saying, "Oh yeah, T's and C's. I'll find you two more properties." But I kind of lost faith in her. But I'd rather have two more than just get my money back. But then, do I just trust her to? She seems quite young and new to the game.
Obviously, the best lessons we do learn is when I'm not saying you're going to lose your money, but obviously, you're in a sticky situation because of immoral people, I guess, one way to put it. But I think I struggle to see how these deal sources, like the deals very rarely stack up, and they're always wanting these big fees for them, which is why hopefully the program can get you connected to more landlords direct than obviously having to go through sources. I do get why people use sources, but I think in the main, you'll only build your business if you're in full control of it, and that's like end-to-end solutions. So it starts with the actual sourcing of the deals, and I don't know who they are. I personally wouldn't just accept that they'll find you two more deals, because I've seen this time and time before where they'll just send you rubbish for the next 6 months, trying to hope that you'll take something.
I gave her 30 days from the time the other one collapsed. I said, do that or return my money. Yeah,
which I think is the right thing to do. And, kind of what I was going to suggest is a very tight timeline for them to find something that's acceptable. And then obviously there's ways and means to get the money back. But, a lot of these deal sources, live on their credibility, and they don't want it ruining online for starters, because that's where they go fishing, especially on Facebook. But yeah, just keep me informed of how that's playing out, and if you need any help, then I'm happy to help out on that front. I think lessons learned from it are probably, don't do anything until you got the keys, in your hand, and I would never pay anybody anything, especially a sourcer, until you've actually got the keys. That's always.
I had the keys. It was like my third visit, because we were setting it up. Because it's 4.5 hour. One way.
I mean, in all fairness, technically, you could have just operated, and then you're now in the power situation because at the end of the day, whether you're a commercial tenant or a residential tenant, a landlord can't just come and turf you out because you've got rights.
Right.
So if they've handed it over, you know, and they're forcing you and you've paid them rent, then technically the contract's in place, even though there's not like a documented contract, and or there's an agreement in place. It can get messy, obviously, doing it that way, but at the end of the day, if you're in that property, you're not like, you know, if a squatter goes into your property and stays in it, you can't just take them out. So, you know, you possibly could have left the stuff in and just started operating. Downside being, you know, they can quite easily get locks changed because they'll have title deeds and stuff like that. So then your furniture could end up getting surrendered, and you know, it's not where you want to be, obviously. But I think another thing on the terms as well is, you know, for me, contracts only come into play if you ever end up in court. That's the way I kind of look at contracts. I think, yes, you want to protect yourself because that will probably happen maybe one time out of 100. But in the main, you know, once you're getting the flow going with the landlords and they're getting their rent, that because at the end of the day, they just want to get their rent and know their property's getting looked after. You tick those two boxes, then they stay off your case, you know. And even with your sort of annual rent increases, you can almost argue those a bit, you know, towards, you know, like if when we have contracts from the end, they're trying to put the rents up, I kind of just regurgitate, you know, listen, for the last how many years, we've never rang you, you've never had to pay a maintenance bill, we've never missed a rent. You know, would you risk me losing me as a tenant for a 7% increase? And potentially go and find somebody else, or would you, you know, just stick to where you're at because that's making it work for me? It's obviously working for you, and you know, and just trying to. It's like that, you know, the trust that I talked about on the last call. Once it builds with these landlords, they see how good of a deal they've got, and then those type of strict terms they put in place subside slightly. Some don't get me wrong. Like, you know, I've given properties back because some of them are just narrow-minded and don't see the bigger picture, and they're just after a quick fix and a quick buck. But I tend to just give them back. If, you know, at the end of the day, if they don't see the value in working with us, then unless it's a very profitable unit and I can still make a lot of money with the rental increase, I'll just kick it back. But I guess a lot of lessons learned from the experience, and hopefully you can, you know, come out of it without too much of a financial loss. Furniture is furniture, so you know, at the end of the day, you've got it now for 2 more units, and it can just go in. You know, obviously you'd want cash flow coming in from it, but you are where you are. So probably just a case of trying to get stuck into.
What's the best way of getting my rent, my deposits back? Because they haven't paid it back yet. It's been about a week.
So that's from the actual
landlords.
I think you've got to be. I mean, are they giving you a reason why they're not giving it back?
They're playing games, saying, "Oh, you've got the key." So I put them in the post this morning, took pictures of it, sent him proof of posting and pictures of the keys going in the envelope. You know, whatever I could.
Okay, so those keys are on their way to them.
Yeah.
I mean, with a bit of luck, they are, you know, proper people, and they'll return your money once those keys hit. I think if obviously you'll have them tracked, I assume, so you can tell exactly when it's been signed for. So the minute it's signed for, you want to be texting them or ringing them and just saying, you know, can you get that transferred back? And you know, if it's not back within 24, 48 hours, personally, I'd be going knocking on their doors. But you know, it's hopefully it doesn't come to that, and they will just pay you. You could. I don't know how big of a landlord they are, but if they are part of like the PRS or, you know, one of the sort of landlords redress schemes, then you could potentially file a complaint with them. You know, if it does drag out.
One of them's got 12 properties apparently.
Right. So you see, some of these landlords are and some aren't. But hopefully it'll all just work itself out, and you know, a week's time you'll have the money back in the bank, and you just move on and find another opportunity. opportunity or another couple of opportunities to put your money into, I guess. What area are you operating in?
That was in Manchester, but I'm in Ipswich, so it's quite a round trip.
Yeah. So I think one thing that I've definitely, discovered over the years is try and build on your doorstep, especially at the beginning. There'll be good areas around every location that works, and it's a lot easier to manage. And I think if you 2 seconds, let me just turn this off. If you've got, this end-to-end control is something that's really important. I think quite often overlooked by SA operators, and I've even overlooked it myself by probably scaling into areas that I shouldn't have, just for the sake of getting another unit or getting another number. So, but as I've got more and more experienced, definitely now narrowing the focus into like these controlled areas that we have. Ideally end-to-end control from absolutely everything within the business, and when things like that go wrong, you can manage it a lot easier. It's a lot less stressful, a lot less time consuming, because things do go wrong in business. You're never going to get away from that. As everyone knows, money turns people into gremlins at times, and it happens more and more in business. So you've got to really work out how you can fight that. And for me, it's like having as much control on the business as possible. And that comes down to your bookings and your cleaners, your absolutely every element of it. You want to look at it and say, like, how in control of this am I? Like if you look at your scenario, you've got a sourcer that you're not in control of, you've got 2 landlords that you're not in control of, you're out of area, which is a bit out of control as well. So it's like there's a lot of things there that you'd say, well, is that a decent business model? And you'd probably, if you took that to an investor, they'd probably say not really, because you've not really got much control. You haven't even started with the booking side of things, where again, you'll probably rely on Airbnb booking.com at the start. You've not got any control over them either. So, as you grow, you want to start like just knocking those uncontrolled into controlled. So more direct bookings, so you're not relying on the OTAs, maybe, on your doorstep. So you've got cleaners that you potentially recruit internally, and you actually have them on the books rather than just agencies. And you've got to get to a certain size, obviously, to be able to fund all that. But if you do this properly, you can quite quickly scale. You can quite comfortably get, 10, 15 units year 1, and then, another 25 or so year 2. So within a couple of years, you can quite easily get your cash flow to a point where you're going to need teams, people around you to be able to help, and it's going to be a lot easier if it's on your doorstep. So that would be my sort of 2 pence worth, really, given on the experience that I've had so far with how we've done things, and the bits that haven't worked and the bits that have worked, and the areas and the properties and the profitability comes from where we've got massive amounts of property in one location, because we also then have internal teams to run those, whereas the headaches come from the properties that we've got randomly, and we don't really have teams. We're using agencies, or we're using freelance cleaners, or we're just not in control of that as much as we'd like to be. And they always let you down because they're not bought into the business. They don't feel like they owe you anything. They're certainly not scared of losing a contract, because they know fine well they can just go and pick another one up. I've had an incident today where an agency cost us a booking which was £747. So I said, well, I'm not paying the cleaner £747 off the invoice that she wants. Cleans a lot of properties for us, but has really dropped the ball and won't take responsibility for it. And they're like, oh, well, just knock off the cleaning fee. It's like, well, the cleaning fee is £49. We've lost 747, and unwilling to accept the responsibility for that. So sure enough, they're like, we're not doing any more cleans for you, because they know they'll just go and pick up other contracts.
Yeah.
All right, it causes a bit of an issue for us at this minute in time, because it might leave us a bit light. But at the same time, I don't want to work with people like that. We should never be at the mercy of people that do a bad job and still think that they don't need to take any responsibility for that poor performance.
Yeah.
So, and you see this time and time again throughout the whole industry in every element, whether it's deal sourcing, whether it's cleaning, whether it's linen, whether it's, management, ops, each bit of it, there's always these little pockets of, problems that I think you've just got to get a grip on from day one if you can.
Right.
But yeah, I think on the direct event, have you been doing much direct to landlord sort of prospecting?
Don't really have the time.
Okay. How much time do you have?
Certainly not enough time to be going to Manchester all the time. I've tried Sheffield in the past. Yeah, I guess I should come back to the doorstep and try this local area.
Yeah, I mean, let's just have it. I mean, my first question is obviously like, why are we avoiding Ipswich?
Well, I was just trying to use sources just so they could do all the grunt work for me. It was so I've tried lease options before. I've been up to Sheffield, spent weekends going around agents and stuff, and I guess you could say I'm just lazy.
Yeah. I think I think you got to take that in two ways, haven't you? I mean, obviously you'll be busy with other things, and everyone kind of builds these businesses out as side hustles to start off with. That's predominantly how everyone. I don't really know anyone that's gone, I've just gone into that as a full-time gig from day one. I think most people do tend to build it out around a job, around a sort of side hustle, and I think but for me, you do need to put for me, you've got to put the effort in, and I think the I wouldn't call them lazy. I'm sure you're not lazy. I get it. You've probably not got loads of time, so you think the alternative option is to just use sources and let them do the grunt work, but ultimately it's not going to move your business forward as quick as you would probably like, and with that control factor. You got to remember now, like that deal source has got your money, and I know you'll hammer their door down until you get it back, but they're just going to cause you more stress and more hassle trying to get that money back. If that is your only funds to be able to set more units up, then you're now in they could hold on for the next 4 or 5 months and you can't do anything because they've got your money. So trying to do it that way is almost, and you're not the first. Like, there's more of these. I hear more of these stories than I hear good about deal sources. So whilst it seems like the easy option, it's actually not. It's the hardest option because you waste so much time fannying around with them and getting refunds or getting crap deals, and even the deals that they tend to send are nigh on crap. So but like, let's just have a look. So here, I mean, a B+ grade areas, it's all right. It's you want to try and get your A's and A+. There's 417 active rentals in the area, which shows that obviously it does work, because 417 people are making it work, or several companies in a mixture of lot. You've got your kind of 1s and 2 beds are obviously quite a lot of the stock. Over 50% of the stock is 70% of the stock is 1 and 2. So that could be an option. 45% of the stock's 3 beds, 8%, 7%. So there's enough for me here to say that Trevor can pick up 25 properties here in the next couple of years, because effectively that's all you're after, right? And that would see you do well. The average daily rate's pretty good. Occupancy rate 61%. So whenever you're stacking your deals, you want to be. I mean, I don't know what day. I don't know how you do it, but like, say for that Manchester one, whatever the occupancy was, no doubt they'll have said like a 75% or whatever. But this occupancy figure is not a bad way to go. So if you're stacking deals and they're making money at 61% occupancy rate, then that's typically what you're going to probably make. If you have a really good year, then obviously it'll kick up. And obviously, as you can see, the flows, and then you've got obviously average revenue here. So for me, this is why like tools like this are good, because you can not get caught up in the sort of, I need to be in that area, I need to be in that area. You know, you can just say, well, does it actually work on my doorstep? What do I need to go after? And what is my, you know, expected occupancy? Now, I don't know whether the properties are cheaper where you are or cheaper in Manchester, but again, you just need to kind of run the data through and find the deals. Now, how do you go about that? The best way for me is, you know, open rent and Facebook is where you're finding these deals. So, you know, open rent, you know, we can go on open rent. Let's have a quick look and see. So open rent is effectively where landlords advertise direct, but they use this site to push them onto sites like Rightmove and Zoopla and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, you've got 54 properties here that are on open rent. So if you start contacting these properties here, then, you know, they will be with landlords. Now you'll see here, you've got a short-term rental here. Now this is actually, I know, Steve and Nick in the chat earlier were asking about like how to get direct bookings, and this is one of the strategies that you do deploy. You advertise on platforms like this, and you will get people advertise. You'll get inquiries for contractors looking for longer stays and things like that. So this is a good method that we use. I think it costs £29 to list for about 3 months, but yeah, we get bookings from this platform as direct booking strategy. But you can see here, you know, you've got quite a lot of unfurnished stock. So a 3-bed there, 1,400 a month. You know, you've got, you know, there's plenty of stuff on here where you'd be able to, you know, speak to the, you know, that looks quite a nice property, you know, speak to the landlords direct by, you know, open up you can, you know, message the landlord or request a viewing, and then you just, you know, use the sort of strategies we talked about. The idea is to get them on the phone or just book a viewing, and then go and see the property. And that's one way that you can easily pick up some stock. Obviously, you're just logging on there, you know, every day, every other day, once a week, whatever it might be, depending on the time you've got, and just searching for any fresh stock that's come through. And again, just messaging those landlords. Now, if you do that every day, then I guarantee you'll get business. Now, the problem with most people is they'll go message landlords. I haven't got an account set up, but you message the landlords, and then they might not respond. So people will go, oh, well, I'm not going to bother pestering him. But, you know, if you see that property still advertised a week down the line, message again. And then, you know, another week down the line, message again, because they get more and more motivated the more time that these properties are empty. So don't just think, oh, I messaged him 3 weeks ago, so I'm not going to bother now because he's obviously not interested. You know, as it says here, you know, this guy's response rate's actually only 69%. So he might just have not seen your message, or her, to Claire. So, you know, she might not have seen your message, or, you know, she actually only responds probably every 4 days. So if you haven't had an instant response, don't get too downbeat about it. Just keep banging the drum until they basically say, go away. And, you know, because persistency in this game gets you more deals than anything, and follow-up gets you more deals than anything. So, you know, even once you've been one, then, you know, you want to follow up. And even if they decline, you might offer £1,000 a month and they say no. You just keep asking them every week. I see your property's still on open rent. Is it still for rent? Yeah, it is, but I want me 1,200 quid. All right, well, my £1,000 still stands because that's where I need to be. Next week, you do the same. Next week, you do the same. Eventually, they'll accept it if the property stays on the market. So, or you might, you know, try and do a deal in the middle, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the idea is just getting like a volume of messaging going. And it's the same on Facebook. There's plenty of groups in Facebook. Like, I'm pretty sure there's probably like an Ipswich sort of buy, rent, sell group, or, you know, Ipswich properties for rent group, you know, or Ipswich landlords. There's all these type of groups that pop up. All you got to do is just go in there and start looking at, you know, looking at the feeds, and you'll see landlords are putting properties up. I've got this for rent, or I've got that for rent. Or you can even just ask a question of, does anybody have a 3-bed to rent in whatever IP3 or whatever IP4? You'll know your areas better than me. So And then they don't know whether you're a tenant, they don't know whether you're a landlord, they don't know you. So the ones that have stock will comment saying, oh yeah, I've got a 3-bed. So then you just say, right, I'm going to send you a direct message. And then you send them a direct message like, hey, can I come and view your property? And they might start asking a few questions. What do you want it for? This, that, and the other. And that's when you kind of use those sort of, 8 to 15 bullet points of, what you do, why it benefits them, what you're looking for. And and just kind of selling yourself really, and building that trust between you and the landlord to be able to then either get on the viewing and speak to them first. I personally, I preferred to get on the viewing. I felt like I could talk to somebody better face to face and actually convince them that I was the right person to rent to, rather than over a telephone giving a pitch that probably a lot of people are given as well. So for me, I always try to just get on the view, and I didn't really divulge too much at the beginning. And I think that's the benefit of trying to sort of do things on your doorstep as well, because 10 minutes down the road, you can be on a viewing. Whereas, you don't probably want to be executing that strategy if you've got a 2-hour drive and then get there and they just go, nah, we definitely don't do this. We don't rent to companies like you, So again, there's a lot of benefits to go in the area. And I'm pretty sure, outside of your area, there'll be, sort of these areas around here or a nearby sort of, I don't know the South that well, but, Colchester, I don't know how far that is away from you, but is that another big area that you could tap into if need be? So I would probably just switch it up a bit. And I know you say you haven't got time, but, even if you just, to put it in perspective, when I first started, I had a 70-hour-a-week job. I ran 5 car dealerships. We worked 7:30 a.m. till 7 p.m. So I was getting up at 5 and I was basically going on these websites and I was sending the messages. And then as I was kind of doing my job through the day, I was dealing with the replies on my phone and teeing up viewings. And then I would go to the viewings on my way back home from work. And that's kind of how I just fitted it in. And then, bit by bit, I started, popping out on a lunch hour for a viewing, or, just kind of making it work. But what I did religiously was I got up early and I kind of teed the day up by making sure I was sending the messages for the inquiries. So I was doing all my research and my searching and just sending messages on OpenRent, Facebook, Gumtree, Zoopla, Rightmoves, all those I was just sending on a morning. And then I was kind of just on my keeping an eye on my phone throughout the day for anyone that was replying, and just trying to get the viewings booked in for either later that night or the next night or the next lunchtime. And then I was popping out and doing quick viewings, meeting, and then I got deals, So I did that around a very busy. I also had 2 kids under probably, what would they be, 4 at the time, So I had a busy time as well. But it was just kind of getting organized and knowing where to spend your time efficiently to then try and get the result. So I'm pretty sure if you spent like an hour or 2 just on a morning or at a certain time of day, every single day doing this type of activity, you will get results from it.
Hi Ryan, how you doing? Could you check AirDNA for Glasgow, the grade? I just want to see what it's like.
Yeah. I imagine it's A. I might be wrong.
Have you got any properties in Glasgow, or are you just sticking to England? You like the northeast?
I don't think we have got any in Glasgow, if I'll be honest. But yeah, it's an A grade. It's a big city, isn't it? It's 3,300 active rentals there. So, there's a lot of people doing it.
That's loads.
Got some bigger operators are up there. Cottages.com got a few. But
Does
yeah,
this cover Airbnb people?
And are you saying that like the 3 beds like the best, where you have like 6? Oh.
Well, this data is saying the majority of the stock is 2 beds, 3 beds, 13% stock. But it's like there's still, for me, I wouldn't. This here is, it's probably more of like it's probably a lot. You see, it's a lot more expensive to set up 4 or 5 bed houses than it is kind of 1s and 2 beds. So the majority of people will probably start around here, which is why there's always more volume of like, lower bedrooms. For me personally, in our areas, this stock here performs a hell of a lot better than this stock here. So I would now I'd rather, have and buy and rent the bigger houses than I would the littler ones, because the margins are much bigger. But that strategy might not work in every single location.
See for like the 3 beds and the 4 beds.
Yeah.
Do you always put like single bed, like 2 single beds into a room? Is that how you really make the money? Or would you still have like a double bed?
No, so I think the room setup's always something that I tend to like. If I've got a 3-bed house, I would put a double in and probably 2 twins. But then saying that, the landscape over the last sort of 2 years has probably changed slightly, where, even like the contractors used to they are shifting a bit back towards that game, but most of them now want their own room, because through COVID they got used to getting their own room. So there's an argument to say that 2 doubles and a twin might work, which again we do. A lot of the time our setups come from kind of what stock's available or what we've got in our warehouse. So and we'll just put it in and see if it works, and then we can switch it out. I don't think there's any right or wrong. I personally don't bother with zip link beds, because I think it causes a lot of complications on cleaning, and if they don't request it, then you've got like because your linen, you've got to tear it all down and set it back up again. So for me, we've never really bothered with that. I'm not saying that's the right answer, but I've just never bothered with it. So it's just a lot of this is testing, and every area is very different. But I think in the main, if I had a 3-bedder, I would either do 2 doubles and a twin, or I'd do a double and 2 twins. So you're giving a bit of momentum. I think sofa beds are not getting as used as they were previously. But again, you could say, well, we've kind of moved away from the sort of weekend tourism traffic in the main across our portfolio. So is that the reason that sofa beds aren't getting used, versus when we used to see them getting used all the time when we were doing a lot of weekend, Friday, Saturday night type stuff? So there could be a reason in that, but in the main, as you grow, you're going to have a mix of all property sizes, and I think you probably
see for the location, see the city centre. Do you want to stay kind of just outside of the city centre, or do you want to go into it too, for like say for Glasgow?
Well, for say Newcastle, for example, we very rarely get contractors booking our city centre stock, because they don't want to be parking in NCPs and having to walk to find an apartment somewhere. They just want to park their van outside the house, go inside, cook their food, repeat the process 4 times a week, and then drive home. They don't want to be finishing on site and having to go and find an NCP and blah blah blah. Obviously your weekenders, they prefer probably to be more city centre, so they can just dive in and out of the bars and not have to get taxis and stuff. So I think it depends entirely on what your model is. But as you can see here, I mean, I'm assuming that's like Glasgow city centre there. You've got quite a spread kind of out, and you've got some quite sort of heavy dotted areas on the fringes. Now I'd imagine they'll probably attract the more contractor type stays than the stock that's right bang in the middle. And I think most cities are like that, in terms of when they're booked. I mean, when we deal with like the big corporates, and their criteria for their staff is 15 miles from the site. So if they've got a site, I don't know, somewhere up here, their criteria is they need accommodation 15 miles to that within that site, i.e. a 10-minute drive to work, basically. So that's kind of how they typically picture it when they come to us for stock.
See for like the location, does it you were saying that they're usually like in a van or they're driving, but if they're not, do you want to kind of be near a train station? You know, if they're having to go.
I probably don't think the train station is as big of a pull as not for the contractor stuff anyway, because most of them are, you know, most of them are like on the tools, so they've got their vans, they've got their kit, they do drive. I think your train station probably falls back into your tourism side, and therefore you'd want it probably more central, you know, so it's easy of access to the train station for them to you know, travel to airports or whatever, or go back down south or whatever. So that probably falls more on the tourism market. Now, don't get me wrong, like the tourism market's great. Like you can earn a lot of money. You can double your prices pretty much on a weekend and you'll get it. The downside of it is it's increased maintenance and increased hassle. So it just depends what you want. I mean, you know, a lot of people say, well, the ideal is you get a contractor through the week and a weekender on the weekend. Whereas I'd probably argue the case that I'd rather have a contractor in for a month and clean twice, you know, and it's less maintenance, it's less hassle. And, you know, you might make slightly less revenue wise. However, you're probably not going to have as many costs. You're not going to have as many maintenance issues. And, you know, as you scale, you're not going to need as many team members to operate the guest relation side of things, because you've got to remember every property that you take on needs time to answer inquiries, take phone calls, check people in, you know, deal with issues when they get in the property, make sure the cleaners are going around the day after, all that sort of stuff. So, you know, every single one of those that you take, every single booking you take on is another one of those problems. I'd rather have one person a month than 8, because that's 8 problems.
Yeah, makes sense.
One problem. I mean, it doesn't always work out like that, obviously, and you know, you get a good mix, but in the main, that's kind of for me, the market everyone in the UK should be trying to chase, bar probably a couple of areas like Lake District, Cotswolds, probably South Coast, you know, Brighton, those sort of places, because they are purely, I think, you know, tourist traffic. So.
See, for the cleaners and stuff like that, when because I work offshore, so that's why I'm trying to do this as a side hustle, but I'm trying to get into that full time once I start to actually grow the business. But for like cleaners and stuff, when I'm going to be away for 4 weeks at a time. I come back for 4 weeks, but 4 weeks I'm absolutely free. I can go on as many viewings as I like. But the only thing that I feel like the problem would be relying on people like cleaners, and then when you're away, you don't, you know, they can stop last minute and I've got no one to get. I don't know how would you navigate that sort of situation?
Yeah, I think for me, I think you've got to build a business alongside a management company. So I think you need you until you probably get a position where you can come away. I think, you know, you can't be going dark to a business for 4 weeks at a time and not being able to make the phone calls, because things will happen. Or alternatively, you have somebody on the ground that, you know, you either bring into the business as a partner or somehow have them invested in it as well, so that on those 4 weeks you're not there, they are running the day to day. But in the main, I would probably look at, when you're building your figures out, start putting in a management fee as a cost.
Management. Okay.
And yeah, you might make, you know, you might make several £100 less a month, but you know, you're still making money and you're not having to do anything and you're not having to worry. That's one of the biggest things. So, you know, you can just continue to focus on finding deals and know that once they're found, you can plug them into, you know, a professional management company who does the job for you, you know, and looks after everything for you, so that you're not having to worry about anything.
Okay. That makes sense. See, for the contractors that you're finding, see, for the start, like if I'm going to start doing this, like, do you contact companies directly? Or I know that you found out about them because you phoned them up after they stay with you, but do you just go after them as well, just like email?
Yeah, if you look at if you look at the evolution of most, of the bigger short-term rental businesses, their direct booking game goes from like obviously 0% to probably 5-10%, then to maybe 15-20%. And I think really that grows as your brand and database grows. There isn't like, and I've done this where I've asked the team to like just ring companies and see who's, but you've got to think about like the percentage chance of you ringing a company on the day that they are booking accommodation for Glasgow for however many people, it is quite slim. Even if you've got the I think there's a website which basically tells you what projects have been won and what companies are going to be working on them in what locations and stuff, that you can buy into. But even that, like, you've got to be pretty on the ball to be catching that right person. And also what you've got to remember is these people don't want to deal with like multiple operators. So like our direct booking game has got better as we've got bigger, because they'll ring us up and say, listen, we've got 65 guys coming to the area. Have you got enough stock to house them all? And obviously we're like, yeah, we can get them in a 5-bed here, a 3-bed there, a 6-bed there, blah, blah, blah. And we do a full deal on the whole stock. They'd rather do that than go and find 25 different operators with 25 different check-in systems and contracts. And, because that's just hassle for them. They just want one go-to person. So even if you were to get through to whatever company that was doing the project, and then they said, well, have you got 65 bedrooms? And you say, well, no, I've only got 1 2-bed flat in Glasgow. They'd be like, yeah, we'll bear you in mind, but obviously we'll probably still look for a bigger operator. So I think in the main, you want to use Airbnb and Booking.com, Verbal, all those people to build your database. But the biggest like, I guess, like criminality in this game is like people that take bookings and don't get people's phone numbers and email addresses. They don't build a database. I've consulted for some businesses like a year in. I'm like, how many bookings have you had? They'd be like, oh, we've had several hundred this year. I'm like, you got all their email addresses? Oh, no, we haven't got any. And it's like, do you know how much money you're leaving on the table by not collecting that and not sending an email at least once or twice a week to them, just giving them, value for money, really? You're not really pitching stuff. So I think as you evolve as a business, those direct booking figures naturally evolve, only if you've got a good strategy in place to actually work that data. So we do phone calls, we do email blasts, we do WhatsApp blasts. We're constantly in touch with our database and reminding them that they can book back with us. And then as you start getting bigger with your portfolio, then you start attracting obviously the various trade broker type people and websites that know they can come to you in a certain area and that you can fulfill a deal for them. Because again, they don't want to be putting 25 contracts together as the broker. They'd rather just put one together, take their fee for the exchange in between the two companies, move on to the next deal. So I personally, for direct bookings, the biggest thing you can do is just pick the phone up and speak to the guests that you've got in stay at the beginning. And then you try and, you can try and win more guests through some marketing strategies, paid ads, Google ads, listing them on various websites as kind of AST type properties, but fully furnished with bills and stuff. And that will drive inquiries for sure. Like even if you've got one property, that will still drive inquiries, because ultimately they're putting the inquiry in because they've seen it, rather than you fishing for a business that might be there. So there's, I say this all the time.
Do they give you that information?
The what?
The like Airbnb. Does Airbnb not give you their email and phone number? Do you need to email them to get their contact?
So this is where you need so obviously in the program, I think there's a link for uplisting, which is the channel manager that I've used for years now, and this is where they come into their own, because they take the once someone books, they then send them basically, or the system automatically sends a message saying, thanks for your booking. However, you're not fully booked in, or you're not confirmed yet, or to confirm your booking, you need to do this. And it's basically fill your name in, fill your email in, fill your phone number in, and then it goes into pre-check-in of getting the contract's ID and all that sort of stuff. But the main thing is to get that data at the beginning. And once we've got that data, we then extract it down to our database, and then it's ours for good, and we can do what we want with it. So it's really important that you're using tools like that. Some people say, oh, well, I don't want to pay whatever it might be, £9 a month per listing. But if you're getting 8 bookings a month, and you can get 8 phone numbers, 8 email addresses. I mean, I think they say the average database is worth, I think it's £1 a record per month. If you've got a database of 10,000 people, that's worth 10 grand a month to you if you use that database properly. So, if you're getting like 6 to 8 bookings a month and you're paying £9 per listing, really, it's only costing you £3 because, you're going to use that data and you're going to get bookings from it. So, for me, you've just got to get a channel manager in play from day one for various reasons, but that's one of the main ones as well. And then you've got to be ringing them and speaking to people. So
okay, yeah, thank you.
Which database do you use, Luke, for Ryan? Sorry, for keeping the contacts for your guests so that you email them back?
Yeah, so Uplisting will keep the data of each booking on their booking slide, and and it's there in the reports and stuff like that, which you can extract down to CSV at any time. I have it automated. I have a setup using Zapier where the bookings come in, and then it'll automatically ping the guest data to my active campaign database, which is my emailing software. And then from that, we then build campaigns out and email the guests, regularly, at least once, if not twice a week. So we're just constantly, reaching out to them. And then we'll do things like, like we've just extracted the data. Like March is the busiest month here in Dubai. So we've just extracted the data for that, and we'll start sending messages out. Like, you stayed with us last March, for 4 nights or for 5 nights or whatever it is. Are you looking to come back to Dubai again? We've got some more stock now since you stayed last time in new areas. We've also got recommendations of some, new restaurants that have opened, some new beach bars, things like that. And just trying to get back in touch with them, rather than just let them go back onto a booking site, find someone else's accommodation and obviously book with them. So, we're just constantly trying to just keep that customer. I think, it's dead easy to, it's difficult to win somebody, but then, it's very easy to lose them. So once you've got them, you want to try and get them to continue. If they've enjoyed themselves last time in your apartment or, villa or whatever, then they're going to more than likely want to come back. And if they are coming back, they'll definitely use you again. If you give them an option to do that. If you're not giving them an option, then they'll just, everyone's lazy now. So the easiest thing for them to do is go and type Airbnb back into a Google search and start the whole process again. So, we've got to constantly be kind of saying, go on our website and this is why, and, this is, the improved stock we've got and things like that. So that's typically in the main what we do. But if you haven't got the data, you can't do that.
Yeah, that's one thing I've been struggling to do, Ryan, in my business, because I find, I don't know whether it's because I'm not an IT geek or something, or is it something that I can outsource from somebody who's good at it? Because
you can outsource anything these days using Fiverr. You just go on Fiverr and type in your problem, and someone will build something for you, especially if it's tech related. But in the main, like, in the main, if you've got say if you use Uplisting as your channel manager, every time you get a booking, if you've got Uplisting's verification process turned on, then it's gonna, in fact, you probably don't even need that turned on, but you should have that turned on if you are using it, because it's a powerful tool. It also gets you security deposits and all that, so you're not having to manually do that yourself. But I'm pretty sure even if they're not, they still have to then confirm the booking. So they will then put their name in, put their email in, put the phone number in. Now that then sits on the database on Uplisting. You can do one or two things. You can just manually pull that out as a report, and you'll have a spreadsheet there with everyone's numbers and everyone's email addresses. And then you just copy those email addresses and put them into like a software like Active Campaign. An active campaign, I think, is free until you've got about maybe 1,000 or 2,500 records.
Okay.
So, you know, you can effectively play around with that tool for free until you've got a half decent sized database. And then you've got the but I actually use, like, Zapier for me is a tool that I think anyone can use, and it links softwares. So Uplisting have an integration with Zapier, and so does Active Campaign. So you can actually get it when Uplisting gets a booking, it goes into Zapier, then Zapier takes it into Active Campaign. So then you're not having to do that manual sort of download and import. It's already just happening every time a booking's going through. So, but at the same time, we still do a monthly data dump, because sometimes Uplisting might not change the email address, and therefore it won't filter into our system. But then at a later date, that guest might have then actually gone and confirmed themselves and put it in. So we'll still then dump the data and put it in at the end of each month, and it'll say, you know, we've already got whatever, how many thousands of these records already in, but those are fresh records, so we'll dump them into the list. So I think building email lists is possibly overlooked in this industry. You know, it's like, it's not really thought about. And I know, you know, I mean, I'm not the best on email. I hate them, to be honest, and I don't hardly ever go in the email inbox. But, you know, a lot of people do live in their email inboxes, and I think email is the cheapest and probably the highest volume method of reaching people, because you can just blast them out as much as you want. And if they're not interested, they just unsubscribe. And if they are interested, they keep receiving your content. But I think, you know, this is where kind of the marketing element comes in, where, you know, you don't just want to be like dumping them with a pitch every time and being like, hey, I've got this amazing flat, do you want to book it? Hey, I've got this. You know, you just gotta, email marketing is not about that. It's about just staying in someone's sort of peripheral vision, that they recognize your brand name, they potentially can go back into their inbox and reply to one of your emails and say, hey, I'm ready to book now, what have you got? Rather than, I think most people market wrong just in general in most businesses, where they just pitch all the time. You know, like, people don't want to be pitched, they want value. And I think I've said this in my book and, you know, many podcasts and stuff I've been on, but one of the best emails I ever wrote was, I explained why booking with Airbnb was more expensive than booking with us, and even if the price was the same, based on the way that they charge the commissions to the guests and things like that. And we got, every single time we send that out, we get, I mean, the initial one I sent out, we got a $6.5 grand direct booking from it. So, you know, it was a very cheap way to gain a decent booking. And that client continues to book with us and has done for years. So that was just the initial booking. But every time we send it out, we definitely get people at least inquiring, what have you got? Or I'm looking to stay here, I'm looking to stay there. Because I'm not even pitching anything. I'm just saying, this is a reason why booking direct is better than going through a channel. You know, and we do kind of value drops all the time. We'll do, like, you know, area guides, or, you know, if you're looking to stay in, you know, wherever, you know, these are the top restaurants right now. And then, you know, at the bottom, we might put a little subliminal, you know, book your stay button. And then obviously they'll click that and go to our website. But I think too many people try and shove things down people's throats and just like book with me, I've got this amazing place, book with me, I've got this amazing place. And they forget about what the customer actually wants. And they also forget, like, the customer journey. So not everyone's in a buying phase every time you want them to be in a buying phase. You know, like, now we've got it where, you know, right now, between November and February is our biggest time where we lose management clients, because the market's dead. And they expect you to work these miracles and bring in all these, you know, like, big contractor bookings, or, you know, overperform the market. But you can't force a market that's not there. You know, you could, in some of these properties, you could put them down to probably £1 a night and they still wouldn't get booked, because there's just no one booking at that time of year. So, you know, you kind of force somebody, and I think you've just got to be there all the time, saying, I'm here when you're ready, I'm here when you're ready. And that's kind of how you should be marketing with the database.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps. Trevor, you were going to ask a question before about AirDNA, I think.
I just noticed there's just Airbnb and Verbo on there. I used to have a glamping pod business, and most of my bookings came from Booking.com and hardly any from Airbnb. So where would you find them?
Yeah, so if you actually look at, so I think their DNA originally started with just Airbnb data, but if you actually look into, I think you're reading where the data comes from. I think it also is connected to a lot of channel managers. So they've got direct links with, say, like Uplisting, your guesting, all of them. So what they basically do is they take any readings of any properties that then get blocked out for whatever period. So if someone books for 7 days and the last nightly rate was £57, then it goes 7 times £57. That classes that as that booking. So although I think it gives the stats here of like rental channels, and it seems to be very, I think people link Airbnb and Air DNA just because of the first 3 letters of the words, but it actually pulls data from channel managers as well. So everybody's channel managers that are also connected with TripAdvisor, Booking.com, and all those other channels, that data is actually getting fed into here as well. So it gives quite a round picture of what's going on.
Right.
So
how would you, so like I remember I've sold it now, but so like Booking.com would automatically give like the Genius, anyone that had logged on for any reason gets 10% straight away, and then they go up to like 15-20% as they go through the Genius program.
Yeah,
that's hard when you're using direct bookings. You can't really compete with that on your own website. You don't want to be giving away all your profits any more than 10 or 15%.
yeah, I think 2 things. One, you don't have to have all those things on with Booking.com. It's nothing more than a sales tool, and if you turn them off, you still end up with the same amount of bookings. You just give less. You give less away. I've definitely learned that. You know, all these mobile rates, and you get more bookings and all that bollocks.
Yeah, I ended up turning them all off. Yeah.
It just turn them all off. You'll still get bookings. In terms of, and this is where I think a lot of people go wrong with that direct booking strategy. They instantly go to discount. If you book direct, you'll get a discount. Whereas I think, you know, if you look at my website now, and don't get me wrong, I used to do the same, but if you look at my website now, it's like, if you book direct, you're getting our stay cover, you're getting our IPRAC guarantee, you're getting, you know, we're building that trust up that like, you're better off booking with us than booking with them because you've got more protection, you know, it's a lot more friendlier. And our rates, yeah, all right, they're a tiny bit cheaper, but only because on the, like, this is where your channel manager comes in. So you can basically set, like, put a 10% uplift on your base rate from Price Labs for Booking.com and for Airbnb, but don't do it for my own website. So you just sit that little bit cheaper. So when they do go on your website, they're going to book. And obviously you're not paying that 15 or 18% commission away to the channels. So you're still at a net gain of whatever, 8 or 10% on every single booking. But what you also get for me, I would happily give away 15, 18%, the same commission amount, to be in full control of that guest. Because at the minute, Airbnb with their air cover, they're just refunding guests for the sake of them. If they make a complaint, they're just refunding guests. You know, just like, say, for example, that the one I was talking about before, the cleaner. So although we dropped the ball there and the cleaner didn't go out, they walked into a dirty property. If we were in control of that booking, i.e. the book direct, we would put a stance down and say, listen, cleaner's coming out now. They'll be there in an hour. Go get yourself a drink or a coffee in the local shop. We'll pay for it. And just, you know, we're sorry. They don't have the out, whereas because that was an Airbnb booking, all they do is ring Airbnb and Airbnb go, no problem, we'll relocate you straight away. They relocate them, they send us the bill for the relocation, and then we lose the booking. So we've got no control over that. So I would pay, I'd happily give away all of the difference to be in full control. But if you do it correctly, you can be in full control and you can make more money.
Right.
So is there any more questions? I know we've been covered quite a bit there, to be fair.
And how does you're saying about I should get a management company in, to manage the properties. What exactly do they do? Like everything, with the cleaning,
Yeah,
what?
Yeah, so I mean, we've obviously I've got a management company as well. So what we effectively do is, someone like yourself would bring us the property. We'd go through the figures with you first and foremost, and we'd also make sure that your property meets brand standards, because we don't want to, if you want 150 quid a night and the market's going to give you 85, there's no point us having a relationship, because it's going to break down very quickly. Also, if your property is not up to scratch, we don't want to bring it into our portfolio, because it's going to affect our brand, and also you're not going to get any bookings. So we wouldn't want to give you the false promise. Now, there's not many companies that will do that. Most will just take it and say, yeah, it'll work, and take it on the books. I've been through the mill of like taking on bad properties and also just, messing around, and then 2 months later they want to leave because they're not getting bookings, and it's just a waste of time. So we kind of do that first and foremost. Then once you're onboarded, we then basically just do everything. So we list it on all the platforms. It sits under our brand name, and then we obviously drive the bookings. We then control all the service elements. So your cleaning, your linen, your maintenance, your consumables, and then obviously your guest relations, your guest inquiries, your phone calls, and then charge a fee for that at the end of the month. Which then at the end of the month we pay you. We basically have a statement, and it says that's how much you've earned. They were your costs, and that's your net revenue less our fee. And then obviously with that money you get, you need to pay your rent, your bills, your utility bills, council tax or business rates, and that's pretty much it, really.
All right. But see if I'm coming back home and I want to get involved a bit, I want to get involved and learn it as well. How would that work?
I think
if they're dealing with everything.
Yeah, I think if you're wanting to do that, you're probably going to have to look at maybe finding a JV partner on the ground, because you're not going to get a management company that's going to, if you're employing a professional manager to manage, you want to just let them get on with it. Speaking from the other side of the coin, there's nothing worse than a landlord or an owner trying to dictate to you how you should run that property, given that they've come to you because you're the expert in it. So, and I can see from your point of view, you want to do it because you want to learn, but you've kind of just got to let management companies get on with it in the main. And if they're good, they'll do a good job for you, and they'll drive the revenue, and they'll probably do a better job than if you were doing it by yourself, because they've got, economies of scale, they've got experience, that, they know how to price things, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you want to learn it, then you're going to have to, given your situation, you're going to have to find somebody you JV with who can look after it on those 4 weeks you're not there. And then obviously you can get stuck in on the 4 weeks you are there and kind of learn the ropes that way.
Yeah. As for the paying the management company, is it a percentage, or is it depending on what property? Is like a fee, does it depend? Is it the same every month, or does it just depend how much you make, or what? Like,
no, most work on a percentage of revenue, so that then they're obviously driven to try and drive as much revenue as possible. That's certainly how we work. So it ranges from anything I've seen from like 10% up to 25% per month on the revenue, depending on kind of what they do. And there are the odd ones that'll just charge like a set 250 quid a month or whatever it might be. But not many. Most are on a revenue sort of share split. So we charge 12.5% plus VAT, and then we kind of look after driving the revenue and everything like that. That changes. I used to charge 15. I've been up to 17.5 before. I've been down to 10. So as companies change and evolve, the rates change as inflation, all that sort of good stuff. Then things will change. But in the main, you'll look to pay something around that sort of region.
Right, okay. Thank you.
No problems. Any more questions before we shoot?
Just want to check with do you highly recommend AirDNA to make a decision on which area to invest in? I
am a big believer in data, and I think there's a lot of these softwares are very smart these days. So I think it's I don't think it's nothing's 100% accurate, right? So I think you've got to always I think two things: go with your gut feeling, and also maybe just do a bit of manual checking. So jump onto Airbnb, just see how many units within that certain postcode. Maybe have a look on Google Maps and see what sort of hotels are kicking around, because hotels spend a lot of money before they, like your big hotels, your Holiday Inns, all that sort of stuff. Before they'll go anywhere, they'll do a lot of research, like does the area work, are the nightly rates there, is the demand there? So typically, if you've got a hotel nearby, that for me is a good sign, because that means they've done the research that there's enough people coming to fill that hotel. And if you've got several hotels around, then that's a great sign, because you know the data's there. But in the main, I do use AirDNA predominantly now, and you know I don't really even use the deal analyzer now, because I know roughly what my percentage costs are. So I just kind of go, okay, that's the projections. I'll take that at 85%, and then I'll run anywhere from 50% cost down to sort of 35% cost, depending on how I've acquired the property. And then does it still work? Yes or no? That's my initial check, rather than building out, deal. At the beginning level, I would firmly advise to build deal analyzers out and get used to putting all the different figures in and seeing how it plays out. It's a good exercise, and it will massively help going forward. But for me now, with the experience, and I can pretty much do it just off that data, just off that figure.
Okay, no, that's helpful to know, because I started off with one area, St. Albans. I've got 6 apartments in there, but now I want to go into a different area, but I'm struggling to find a good area to venture into. So I was trying to think how do I go about it?
I think my question would be, why do you want to go into a different area?
Because St. Albans is now oversaturated. There are loads of operators there, and my 6 ones, I think I'm just about doing well there. And I feel if I was to add more apartments there, I'll end up just having empty properties. So I think the 6 are doing well enough with what's in the area, because there's loads of operators in St. Albans. So I didn't want to increase my portfolio in the same area, rather look for another area that works as well.
So my question to you would be, why can't you become the best operator in St. Albans? Because if there's loads of operators there, then the demand is obviously there. Yeah. I also think the saturation point that we think in our heads is far greater than what it actually is. It's huge. I was the same. I think I got 20 odd in Newcastle quite quickly at the start, and I was like, I need to go somewhere else. We've now got hundreds,
Oh, wow.
So it's and we still get them booked, So, coming back to the earlier conversation about control, I would, if I had my time again, I would not have moved out the Northeast.
Okay.
I would have just built, and I'd probably have double the amount of volume I've got now, because it's just, I'd have had better teams, we'd have concentrated, we'd become the biggest player in the area, rather than dotting off into all these other locations. So I think you underestimate how much time that takes away from you.
Okay.
It's almost like you're setting up a new business, although it's in a new location. It's like setting up a new business again. You've got no traction, It's amazing how much happens with landlord referrals when you're in the same area, and so I'm not saying don't do it. My personal recommendation would be to get probably 100 in St. Albans before you even look to go somewhere else. And I think, just you keep a keen eye on it. You also start to figure out, what's really working, what areas are working, what's not, what size properties are working, and you kind of go on the hunt for that within your area. Also, think about it, the relationships you've built up with potential landlords or agents, if you now go quiet because you're not sourcing anyone in that area, those relationships go. Whereas if you keep your foot on the gas, they still know, we got to get more properties today. She's constantly asking us for properties. She's the go-to girl for St. Albans, but let's just pitch them her. She'll definitely rent them. So it all just kind of, for me, it just builds and builds and builds and builds. And I if I had my time again, I wouldn't have moved out the Northeast.
Thank you. That means so much. That really means, because I wasn't sure whether I should carry on increasing more instead of, because like you said, I've got all of them. I got them through, I think 3 from an agent and other, it was direct to landlord. And those landlords have just been asking me, do you want another one? Do you want another? So yeah, we've got those relationship already. And yeah, but I was a bit scared to keep increasing, but now I think you've given me confidence to say, yeah, just keep going.
Yeah, no, definitely keep going. 6, not that many, you know. I mean, it sounds a lot, obviously, and it's a great result. You know, don't get me wrong. I'm not underestimating that or knocking it. But in the grand scheme of things, you could quite easily have probably 100, 200 in St. Albans and still do very, very well from them all. Okay. You know, I don't know how many properties are in St. Albans, but I'd imagine there's quite a lot. But that means that it works. That shouldn't put you off and say, oh, saturated, I need to move out. Just think, well, I'm going to become the best operator in St. Albans and I'm going to demolish the market so everyone comes to me.
Lovely. Thank you.
And if you don't take them, D, somebody else will.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for your time. As always, just keep popping in the WhatsApp.
Thanks a lot.
Anything that you need, and keep getting through the training modules, and hopefully we'll have a few more properties on board by next month's call.
Lovely. Thank you.
Take care. See you later.
Thanks for your help. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Bye.
See you later on. Bye bye.